So now what we're going to do is go to our visitors from Queensland. They say what they say about Queensland is it's beautiful one day and perfect the next. And to introduce Queensland, we have Sean Bohannon, Principal Trade and Investment Officer, Investment of Queensland, Warren Bartlett, Deputy Trade and Investment Commissioner, Europe and Sub-Saharan Africa at Trade and Investment in Queensland, and also Paul Kay, co-founder and director, Intersoft of Security. And I believe they're going to, Paul, good to see you there. You might need to take your, that's it, microphone, switch that on. We're going to let them give us a presentation and then we'll take it from there, and we'll maybe have time for a question. We'll see how we go. Over to you, Warren and Paul.
Thanks, Andrew. Yep. So I've got the pleasure of introducing and kicking off our session. First of all, nice to be here, and hopefully we can provide you with some great advice. Also, thanks to Newfound actually for pressing ahead and putting on an event like this. It's a great effort, and I'm sure that it'll be the first of many, and hopefully there'll be lots of value for the people that participate. So it's a pleasure to be involved. As I said, I've got a pretty easy job this morning. It's really an introduction. So by way of personal introduction, I'm the Deputy Trade Commissioner for Trade and Investment Queensland. I'm based here in London, usually located in central London, but of course at the moment working from home. We have a small team here in London that covers primarily Europe, the most of Europe actually, the majority of Europe. And our role is really, on the ground. We're working with UK and European businesses to encourage them to land in Queensland, but I guess more importantly, just to explain what Queensland has to offer and how it might fit with a particular business case. So it was important, I think, for you to know who I am and who the team here is. And we're of course always happy to for you to reach out to us. More than welcome. You're more than welcome to do so with questions specifically related to what you hear today, or maybe just more broadly. We'd be very happy to field those and arrange a Zoom call or something similar. So I guess really that's probably the main point that I wanted to push across by way of introduction. I'm going to hand you over now to my colleague in Brisbane, Sean. Sean has some slides. He's going to take you through a bit of an overview about what's happening in Brisbane, touching on, I guess, the business community at large, but also the tech ecosystem that is flourishing at the moment, and it's fair to say has rapidly emerged in the last sort of 3 or 4 years, thanks in part to Advanced Queensland and some significant money that the government has pumped in. So Sean, over to you, and then I think ultimately you're going to hand over to Paul, which will be fantastic, because then we can hear some real insight from somebody who's been there and done it. Sean, are you okay with that?
Yeah, can we have my video started, because it's saying the host has stopped it.
Okay.
There we go.
Cool, there you are.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Warren, and thanks again to everyone joining us tonight and for this morning, and Newfound for organizing. We're really excited to showcase what Australia has to offer companies looking to expand out here, particularly during these times when we can't physically travel. So, you've heard a great presentation from some of our colleagues in Sydney and Melbourne, and New South Wales and Victoria. You're probably aware a lot of the financial services industries here in Australia has traditionally been focused around Sydney, but we just kind of wanted to highlight, however, some of the key reasons tech companies more generally and in the fintech space consider basing themselves and or their tech operations here in Queensland. And as Warren mentioned, we've seen some very strong growth in the past 4 to 5 years, and you could see this in one of the slides my colleague from Sydney had showed, just showing the growth in the tech ecosystem here and the increasing number of new founders basing their companies here in Queensland. And we've also invited one of our local based founders here, Paul Kang of Intersoft, who's a cyber security company for fintech, a leading company here in Australia, who's also on the board of Fintech Australia. And he went through this process of setting up his company here in Queensland, moving from India at the time with his co-founder to do so. So he's going to talk a little bit about that experience. We'll answer some questions on that afterward. So I'm just going to share this slide deck real quick with you. Oh. So yeah, as Warren mentioned, TIQ, just to touch base real quick, is similar to the other trade investment agencies you've heard. We act as a one-stop shop for overseas firms, trying to navigate setting up here in Australia, setting up the business, investing in Australia, ideally via Queensland. We help companies get info they need, facilitate local intros with groups like governments, industry, other partners, the local ecosystem here. And we have an international network, and Warren is based out of our London office, which covers Europe, as he mentioned, but we understand a lot of you are also coming from various other regions, and we have a variety of other offices around the world to be the first point of contact for companies. So quickly about Queensland, I think some of you might know a little bit about us. It's an amazing lifestyle location, but also has a strong economy that's traditionally been based on kind of resources, agriculture, and tourism industry, but increasingly on emerging tech sectors in things like healthcare, AI, and we have a decent cohort of fintech-related companies here. We're on the doorstep of Asia. There's 2 major airports with Brisbane and Gold Coast. Most of the population live here in the southeast corner, which is about 2 million, 5 million total population. We also have a number of world-ranked universities here, which is really important for that talent output and R&D collaboration that some of my other colleagues from some of the other states have highlighted. One of the big things we pride ourselves on here is the government support around tech and innovation. So this has gone back 20 years with a variety of investments, including the most recent $755 million of the past 5 years Advanced Queensland Initiative. And this has been to create Queensland as a destination of choice for researchers, entrepreneurs, investors, and corporates. This involves a variety of grants and programs that companies setting up here can tap into to develop new products, for collaborating with universities. Queensland government just this week announced a new $500 million fund that will be managed by our Queensland Investment Corporation, and that'll look at investing capital into Queensland-based companies. So these are all things you can tap into for companies setting up here. I also wanted to highlight, it's a very supportive community in terms of the culture here. It's very much the founders helping founders, and you'll find that quite an advantage in terms of setting up and being able to connect in with the local companies here. Just to highlight, I guess, some of the, we do have a range of fintech companies based locally, and these cover everything from payment systems, point of sale tech, digital banks, cybersecurity for fintech and blockchain related to fintech. We also have very strong capability in AI, and this is where Queensland government has just invested $5 million in a new AI hub center of excellence in partnership with several of our key organizations and players here in groups like CSRO and other partners to help build this industry out as it's a key space for the future. I guess one of the things that's probably of interest to you all is really some of the targets that we want to highlight, and that's some of the banks, insurance, and super annuation funds here. So banking in Australia is dominated by the big 4 banks, but there's also right outside of that is Bank of Queensland, which is one of the oldest banks and the largest regional bank. Bank of Queensland is also regularly on the hunt for new fintech solutions. They've just this year announced over the next 5 years, they'll be investing $440 million for complete digital transformation. They also own Virgin Money. So with that as well, they've announced the launch of a digital bank via Virgin Money and partnered with groups like Temenos, who is a Swiss banking software company, and have partnered with the likes of Square and others here to roll out across their network. You have groups like Suncorp, who's the country's largest general insurance group, one of the top mid-sized banks, and they run a variety of innovation programs around the fintech space. I guess, how do we compare? This is just a general overview, but we do have a strong, available tech talent and generally lower employment costs, and Paul can probably touch on this briefly. Comparatively lower cost of living and the lowest payroll tax rate in Australia. So these are some of the factors that will kind of come into play when you're considering where you might set up. And a lot of companies here in the tech space are targeting kind of a multi-state approach. So looking at Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane as target locations where they're going to do business. And some, set up tech operations here in Queensland, even if they're headquartered in another place or vice versa. So these are some of the strengths that we have. And I just want to pass over to Paul real quick just to highlight from his perspective as well.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate that. Thank you to Newfound for putting this together. And it's a good opportunity to represent Queensland against the other states here today. So in terms of my journey, I'm co-founder director of Venturesoft Security, a cybersecurity company which really focuses on helping fintechs build secure applications. As part of that journey, I was fortunate enough to get involved with Fintech Australia, sit on the board, and have so for the last 2 years. And I guess over that time, I've really seen the Queensland ecosystem grow, especially in the tech space. It's now become the second largest startup ecosystem in Australia, overtaking Melbourne or Victoria. So quite proud to say that as a Queenslander. But aside from that, the biggest thing for me is the tech talent that comes out of Queensland. A lot of global organizations actually base many tech teams out of Brisbane due to various reasons, talent, whether it's being cost effective, retention, but also the opportunity to tap into the likes of some of the top 10 banks, for example, Suncorp and Bank of Queensland, but also national insurance companies. So we've got the likes of UE Insurance and others. So with my journey, I guess, where I was able to obtain a lot of, I guess, support was through the likes of Trade Investment Queensland, not just here in Queensland, but also trying to tap into, say, Southeast Asia, and whether that be Singapore, Hong Kong, places like Taiwan and Thailand, etc. Just with their broad network across Asia, it was a good gateway into accessing those geographies. Aside from that, there's what I've found here in Queensland as well is the ability for a lot of enterprises or companies who are really supporting and driving the innovation space. For example, whether it be crypto, Brisbane International Airport was one of the first in the world to actually accept payment for retailers who would be able to accept crypto payments. And over the course of like 2 to 3 years, I think there's over 300 outlets, whether it be hairdressers, whether it be cafes, bars, etc., who are able to accept crypto. So it really goes to show that Queensland is pushing the whole innovation agenda. Through that, I think the support of the government with the many innovation grants, there's over 755 million in supporting programs that is really driving that whole innovation ecosystem, whether it be grants and matched co-investment funding, etc. So all those supporting elements really provide a good base for an early stage company or a startup to pave way and be able to tap into it. So it's a matter of having commercial opportunities, which I think Queensland offers a lot of. They're able to tap off the whole tourism, the ag businesses, and fintech is really an ecosystem which can tap into, whether it's agriculture and solve payment processes, whether it's tourism, ease of international transfers and so forth. So for me, Brisbane, Queensland, it's home, but having traveled across Asia and Europe, I just wouldn't have set up anywhere else. So yeah, that's pretty much all from my side. Any questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to share more. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and excellent, all three of you, and you finished perfectly on time, which is great. And what I also noticed is that each of the speakers through the different states, I think in some way actually reflected the characteristic of their states. which is just fantastic. A lot of really good information there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to allow you to meet the speakers. We're going to be able to allow you to transfer into a different mode here on Zoom so that you can actually video conference them now and actually meet them and talk to them in the 3 different states. I'm going to be there at New South Wales, but my colleagues are going to join you in Queensland and also in the Victoria Meet the Speakers rooms. And you'll have half an hour to be actually able to talk to them, ask those more technical questions and get into discussions with them, and we'll help you guide there. At 6:30 our time, which is in just over half an hour, it's in fact nearly 40 minutes, we then come back. And what we do then is meet Alex Scandera, who's the CEO of Stone and Chalk, and he has one of Australia's largest startup hubs in Stone and Chalk. Fantastic guy, he's been doing this very successfully for the last 5 years or so. And then you'll be able to meet Catherine Lyle, who's the co-founder of Seismic Foundry and Seed Money Australia. Catherine's got a really extensive experience in capital markets banking and then seed funding and setting up the fintechs in the ecosystem there. She is a fantastic talent. I met her for the first time the other day, and just brilliant. You really need to take a good look at that. Other startup hub as well. So great sessions that kick off from 6:30. But for now, what I'd like to do is ask you to join the speakers in Meet the Speakers session. And what we'll do then is be able to talk to them in a bit more detail, a little bit more intimacy, and then I'll see you back here at 6:30. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much to the speakers. Let's go and meet them now. Thank you.